Angela was only 24 when she fell in love with Emmanuel, a handsome, charming, and ambitious young man who had nothing to offer but dreams. He told her stories about opening a tech startup, owning real estate, and becoming rich enough to change lives. Angela believed in him, blindly. She was in her third year at the University of Ibadan, studying accounting, but her heart had already graduated into Emmanuel's hands. Her father had died the year before, and her mother was barely surviving from her roadside vegetable trade. Angela had saved 600,000 naira from scholarships, hustles, and gifts. That money was meant for her final year tuition, hostel fees, and upkeep. One evening, while walking through Dug Market, Emmanuel looked at her with sorrow in his eyes. "Babe, I just need 500,000 naira to register my company. If I get it done now, I can pitch to some investors next week. This is our breakthrough." Angela hesitated, but love had no brakes. She gave him the money. No documents. No contract. Just faith. At first, Emmanuel was everything Angela hoped he would be. Hopeful, passionate, and constantly updating her with progress. He sent her WhatsApp messages filled with business plans, logo designs, and pictures of office furniture he claimed he'd bought on credit. "Baby, this is our destiny unfolding," he once texted, attaching a photo of a small glass desk. "Just wait. You'll soon be the wife of a CEO." Angela's chest would swell with pride whenever she saw those messages. She imagined herself in a conference room, introducing herself as Mrs. Emmanuel, finance director. She believed every word, every dream, every plan. She even borrowed 100,000 Nigerian nairas more from her closest friend, Sophia, to support his startup launch. Sophia had warned her. "Angela, are you sure this guy is real? Are you even seeing any real receipts?" "I trust him," Angela replied, smiling. "He just needs a little more time." But time began to turn cold. His messages became shorter. His voice, when he picked up her calls, sounded distracted and impatient. "I'm busy, babe. I'll call you later." Later never came. Angela waited. Days turned into weeks. Her birthday came and went. No message, no call. She began feeling the stirrings of something worse than heartbreak. Doubt. She gathered courage and visited the address on the business card he had once proudly shown her. The building was nothing like she expected. Faded paint, broken windows, and the sharp scent of poverty. A tired-looking security man sat in front, sipping sachet water. "Excuse me, sir. Is this Emax Global Ventures?" she asked. He laughed. "Emax what?" "Madam, NA Pure Water Company Day here. That office never reached 2 months for here before DEM run Comet. NA Yahoo Boys Fulham." Angela staggered backward. Her legs felt weak. The 600,000 Nigerian nairas she sacrificed for love suddenly felt like a curse hanging around her neck. Heart pounding, she took a cab to Emmanuel's family house in Bodija. She needed answers. She needed truth. Sandra, Emmanuel's younger sister, opened the door. Her face went pale at the sight of Angela. "Sandra, please, where's Emmanuel? I can't reach him." Sandra fidgeted, looking around as if someone might hear. "Auntie Angela, I'm so sorry, but he's not here. He traveled to Enugu." Angela frowned. "Enugu? For what?" Sandra hesitated, then whispered what would shatter her forever. "He's getting married this weekend. His fiancée is 3 months pregnant." Silence. The world spun. Angela felt the ground slipping from beneath her. She could hear a distant ringing in her ears, like the sound of 1,000 betrayals crashing down at once. Her body refused to move. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Sandra touched her hand gently, tears in her eyes. "I wanted to tell you. I swear. But he warned us not to." Angela turned and walked away, slowly, like a ghost that had just witnessed its own death. That night, she sat outside her mother's small house, staring at the stars through tear-filled eyes. All she had left was shame, silence, and a scar that no medicine could heal. Angela didn't sleep that night. She sat on the cold concrete step in front of her mother's room, her eyes dry but burning, her fingers trembling. Her mind played and replayed Emmanuel's laugh, his promises, his touch. The man who once held her hand and said, "We rise together or not at all," was now preparing to wed another woman, with her money. Her mother, Mama Nkeru, knocked gently at the door just before dawn. "My daughter, you didn't sleep." Angela shook her head, forcing a faint smile. "I'll be fine, Mama." She wasn't. That day, she dragged herself to campus to check on her deferment status. She couldn't pay her final year tuition anymore. As she waited in line at the bursary office, students around her laughed, took selfies, talked about graduation gowns and final exams. Angela stared at her old school ID card and felt like a ghost trapped in the world of the living. When she got home, the house was too quiet. "Mama," she called. No answer. She walked into the bedroom and found her mother slumped beside the bed, still dressed in her market wrapper. A tray of unsold okra lay on the floor. Her lips were pale, her body still. "Mama!" Her scream tore through the compound. Neighbors rushed in. Someone called a keek. Someone else poured water on Mama's face. At the hospital, the doctor shook his head. She suffered a mild stroke, likely triggered by exhaustion and elevated blood pressure. She needs rest, proper food, and constant medication. Angela sat beside her unconscious mother that night, her head buried in trembling hands. Tears ran down her cheeks like silent confessions. "I was trying to help him. I didn't know I was killing you too, Mama." She had no money left. She sold her laptop, her smartphone, and even her late father's wristwatch, just to pay for the drip and the drugs. She dropped out of school silently. No goodbye, no send-off. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Sophia, her once loyal friend who lent her 100,000 Nigerian nairas, stopped replying to her texts. On campus, people whispered. That girl gave all her school fees to a man, and he used it to marry someone else. She was desperate for love. Look where it got her. Angela started avoiding daylight. Her world shrank to 3 places: the hospital ward, the small backyard where she cried alone, and the local pharmacy where she begged for discounts. Everywhere she turned, she was greeted by the echoes of betrayal. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was ashamed, defeated, invisible. And in those silent nights, as her mother lay unconscious beside her, she began to ask herself a terrifying question. If I disappear tomorrow, would anyone even notice? Angela's life became a routine of survival. Every morning, she woke up on a thin mat beside her recovering mother, stared at the ceiling with swollen eyes, and whispered a prayer she no longer believed in. The woman who once had a future now had only duties: fetch water, clean wounds, cook with borrowed rice, and make it through another day without breaking. Then came the offer from Madame Edu, a wealthy widow who ran a boutique in Agodi GRA. Angela had met her once at the hospital, and the woman, noticing her quiet diligence, offered her a job as a housekeeper. 20,000 naira monthly. You'll sleep in the boys' quarters and keep the house clean. No nonsense, no drama. Can you handle it? Angela nodded without hesitation. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. Her hands grew rougher. Her nails chipped from endless scrubbing. Her clothes thinned out, and her eyes learned to avoid mirrors. But she endured. Until the day the Range Rover pulled into the compound. It was a Saturday afternoon. The sun burned brightly as Angela mopped the marble floor of the living room. She heard the honk, then laughter, rich, effortless laughter that twisted her stomach. She peeked through the curtain. There he was. Emmanuel. In a wine-colored suit that clung perfectly to his lean frame. He stepped out of the car like a man who had conquered the world. On his wrist gleamed a Rolex. On his arm was a light-skinned pregnant woman in a designer gown. Ugochi, daughter of a senator. Angela froze. The mop slipped from her hand and landed with a splash. She rushed into the kitchen, her chest tightening. Her entire body began to tremble. Not out of fear. Not even out of heartbreak. But out of humiliation. She was now the housemaid in the house where he was a VIP guest. She overheard Madame Edu's voice. "Our Emmanuel. So good to see you. My son's birthday can't be complete without the best tech supplier in town. Of course, Ma, Emmanuel replied, his voice smooth as ever. We deliver excellence. Angela crouched behind the cabinet, hands over her mouth, as the sound of their laughter echoed like gunshots in her ears. Minutes later, he walked into the kitchen to check the back route to the power unit. Their eyes met. The world stopped. He blinked. She stared at him like a statue. He moved closer and whispered, low and sharp, "Don't cause drama here. You gave me the money. Nobody forced you." Angela couldn't speak. Her throat burned. Her eyes shimmered but refused to release tears in front of him. She stepped aside, allowing him to pass. That night, she cried into her pillow, muffling her sobs with her wrapper, afraid her weeping would wake her mother. She remembered when he used to hold her close and say, "You're my beginning and my end." Now she was a chapter he had ripped out and thrown away. In that moment, she realized. He hadn't just betrayed her. He had erased her. 2 weeks after that humiliating encounter, Angela awoke to silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. That tastes like dread. The morning light crept in through the torn curtain, casting long shadows on the peeling walls. Normally, by this time, Mama would be humming old gospel songs, preparing hot pap, or whispering her morning prayers beside her wooden cross. But that morning, there was only stillness. Angela turned on the mat, groggy from a night of tear-soaked dreams. "Mama?" No answer. She stood and walked to the bed. There she was. Maman Keiru lay motionless, eyes half open, lips parted, her hands stretched as though reaching for help that never came. Her wrapper had shifted, revealing the fragile bones that hardship had carved out over the years. "Mama!" Angela's scream shattered the stillness. A neighbor rushed in. Then another. Someone called a keek. Her hands shook violently as she tried to hold her mother up, slapping her cheeks, begging, "Please, please wake up. Mama, please. I still need you. Please don't go." The hospital air reeked of antiseptic and dread. She paced outside the emergency ward, barefoot, praying with every breath. A nurse emerged. Her face said it all. She didn't make it. "I'm sorry." Her heart gave out. Angela dropped to her knees and let out a cry that pierced the walls. A sound not of grief, but of guilt. She clutched her chest like it was burning. She felt as though her soul had cracked. "I did this. I killed her." She had no money for a proper burial. No uncles came forward. No cousins remembered. Everyone turned silent when they heard the story. That's the girl whose mother died from disgrace. Angela wrapped her mother's body in white cloth and buried her behind the compound, next to the mango tree they used to sit under. Only 3 people came, an old neighbor, the local pastor, and Sophia, who stood at a distance and left before the final prayer. Angela wore a faded wrapper and sang an old lullaby her mother once used to sing to her as a child. Her voice cracked. She placed a small note beside the grave. "Forgive me, Mama. I loved the wrong person, and you paid the price." That night, Angela stared at the sky, blank and bitter. Ibadan no longer felt like home. By dawn, she packed a small nylon bag, 1 dress, 1 wrapper, and her mother's Bible, and disappeared without telling anyone. No goodbyes. No destination. Only one thought echoed in her head. If pain was a place, I have lived there long enough. Angela arrived in a cure just before the rainy season began. No one knew her name. No one asked. She took a job at a pepper grinding shed tucked between 2 rusted zinc shops in Okijabu. The air always smelled of sweat, pepper, diesel, and regret. For 1,500 Nigerian nairas a day, she carried basins, cleaned grinding machines, and washed other people's red-stained cloths with her bare hands. Each night, her palms throbbed with pain. Her back ached from bending over. And still, she preferred the pain. It numbed the memories. She found shelter in a 1-room wooden kiosk near the sawmill, where the roof leaked when it rained and rats kept her company. No electricity. No mattress. Just a wrapper on cold floorboards, a kerosene lantern, and her mother's Bible, now covered in ash. Angela didn't speak unless necessary. People in the area called her the quiet girl. To them, she was just another migrant laborer trying to survive. They didn't know she once wore a university ID card around her neck with pride. That she once dreamed of opening her own accounting firm. That her laughter once filled a two-room flat in Ibadan. Now, she didn't even recognize her own voice. She cut her hair low, wore second-hand clothes from roadside stalls, and avoided all contact with men. Her eyes were hollow. Her smile, gone. Even tears refused to come now. It was as though her soul had dried up. But fate, cruel as ever, wasn't done with her. One hot afternoon, while grinding a batch of rodo peppers, a customer dropped the Nation newspaper on the workbench. Angela wasn't interested in the news anymore, but something on the front page caught her eye. A headline, bold and shiny like a slap to the face. Young Nigerian tech CEO secures 50 million Nigerian Nairas investment from US angels. Meet Emmanuel Ease, the genius behind Emacs Global. She froze. Right beneath the title was his photo, Emmanuel, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, standing beside a sleek glass building. His smile was wide, confident, undeserved. He had made it. With her money. With her dreams. With the same voice he once used to call her his blessing. Angela sat down slowly, the paper shaking in her hands. Her chest rose and fell in short, painful gasps. Her co-workers thought maybe she had inhaled too much pepper. But it wasn't pepper. It was betrayal burning her lungs all over again. She read every word of the article, line by line. Not once did he mention the girl who gave up her future for him. Not a single acknowledgement. Not even a lie to say, someone believed in me. He had erased her completely. Angela folded the newspaper, placed it gently on her lap, and stared into space. All she could whisper was, "He buried me, but forgot I was still breathing." That night, for the first time in months, Angela didn't light her lantern. She sat in darkness, clutching her mother's Bible, not to pray, but to remember who she used to be. She didn't cry. The pain had gone too deep for tears. Angela didn't sleep that night. She lay on the cold floor, wide-eyed, listening to the hum of mosquitoes and the distant groan of trucks on the highway. Her heart wasn't racing, but her soul was awake. The newspaper rested beside her like a mirror. Emmanuel's smiling face stared back at her, triumphant, polished, celebrated. She touched the photo gently, almost with pity. "So this is how history is rewritten," she whispered. "They forget the hands that built the throne." At dawn, she packed everything she owned into a nylon bag. One wrapper, her mother's old Bible, and the letter she had written 2 weeks after Mama died but never mailed. She wrapped it in a plastic sheet, tied it with thread, and placed it close to her chest. Then she left a cure. No one noticed her absence. The bus to Ibadan groaned as it climbed its way through winding roads. Angela stared out the window in silence. Memories of her city returned in pieces, the bus terminal, the red soil near her childhood compound, the smell of roasted corn near Dug roundabout. She no longer belonged here. Yet, she had unfinished business. The address of Emmanuel's new office was printed clearly in the article. Emacs Global Technologies, 5th floor, Victory Towers, Jericho GRA. Angela stood outside the gates for almost an hour. The security men eyed her with suspicion. Her clothes were clean but worn. Her hair low and unstyled. She looked like a woman with no place to be, but eyes that carried fire. When she finally walked in, the receptionist looked up sharply. "Madam, do you have an appointment?" Angela gave a calm smile. Her voice was steady, soft, yet sharp enough to pierce. "I used to be the investment." The receptionist frowned, unsure of what that meant. But before she could react, Emmanuel walked out of the elevator. Their eyes met. Time stopped. He paused, his smile dying instantly. The sparkle in his eyes dimmed. For a moment, he looked like a man who had seen a ghost. "Angela?" he said, stunned. She nodded. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't kneel or beg. She simply stepped forward and placed a brown envelope in his hand. "This is everything we were." Every picture, every message, every promise you broke. At the top is a photo of my mother's grave. The same mother who died while I was still defending your name. He opened the envelope slightly, saw the photos, the funeral flyer, the final letter she wrote to him the week after she buried Mama. Angela. I didn't mean. She raised her hand to stop him. You meant everything you did. You just didn't care what it cost me. People had begun to notice them now. 2 employees stood by the hallway, watching. Angela didn't flinch. You erased me, Emmanuel. But I'm still here. And I needed you to see me. One last time. Not as the girl you used, but as the woman you'll never be able to silence. With that, she turned around and walked away, her steps slow, firm, final. Outside the building, the sun was high, blazing. She crossed the road, unbothered, her thoughts louder than the horns around her. She never saw the truck coming. A loud crash. Screams. The brown envelope flew into the air like scattered truth. The street fell into chaos. Tires screeched. Horns blared. Voices shouted. Phones came out. People ran. Angela's body lay still on the side of the road, her head tilted unnaturally, blood pooling around her like a curtain call. Her nylon bag, ripped open, spilled her only belongings. A Bible smeared with dust, a tattered wrapper, and the envelope filled with the life she once lived. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She was gone before anyone could hold her hand. And Emmanuel? He stood frozen at the top of the building, staring down at the commotion like a man watching his sins come home to roost. He didn't run down immediately. He didn't even breathe. The receptionist's words barely reached his ears. "Sir, it's her. That lady. She's been hit by a truck." Everything around him blurred. His legs gave way and he sank slowly to the floor. For the first time in years, Emmanuel cried. But the tears weren't for Angela alone. They were for the man he had become. The boy who once had dreams but chose greed. The lover who promised forever but chose convenience. The partner who was held by a dying mother and still walked away. He arrived at the scene 20 minutes too late. A yellow Keek Napap driver was screaming. "DM suppose ban these trailers for Express NA." A woman beside the corpse was sobbing uncontrollably, not because she knew Angela, but because no one had rushed her to the hospital. No one wanted the police case. No one wanted responsibility. Just pictures. Likes. Sympathy comments on Facebook. But she was gone. When Emmanuel saw her lifeless body on the ground, something inside him shattered completely. He knelt beside her, trembling. A man in a black shirt pointed at him. "Oga. Na you she come meet inside that big office ABI? She na your girl? She fine. But she look like she suffer. You suppose protect her, boss. You fail 'em." Those words hit deeper than any punch. He picked up the brown envelope beside her, its edges soaked in blood. He opened it again. This time, he really looked. A faded picture of them, smiling beside a roadside suya stand in Mokola. A copy of a 250,000 naira transfer she made to his first business. A hospital receipt for her mother's kidney test. A rejection letter from the university she had dropped out of. At the bottom of the envelope was the letter Angela had written but never sent. "Dear Emmanuel, I hope you're happy. I really do. I hope your dreams came true, even if it meant killing mine. I just wish you had told me the truth earlier, so I could have stopped waiting for you to remember me. I don't hate you. I just hate what I became because of you. I wish I could go back to the girl who believed in love and dreams and men with empty pockets but big promises. I hope God forgives you, because I'm not sure I ever will." Emmanuel folded the letter back with shaky hands. People were still staring. Cars were still passing. But his world had stopped. Forever. He didn't speak to the police. He didn't argue with the press. He didn't return to the office that day, or the week after. Angela's body was buried by a local church who took her in as an unknown woman. Only the brown envelope went with her, resting beside her in a casket no one came to claim. Except him. He stood at the back of the burial ground, alone. No suit. No cameras. No pride. Just guilt. It had been 1 year. One long, quiet, punishing year. The world had moved on, as it always does. New tech startups rose. Billionaires made headlines. Politics shifted. Lagos traffic still raged, and life continued its dance with chaos. But Emmanuel? He became a ghost in his own skin. People no longer whispered his name in admiration. Now, it came with confusion. Wasn't he that young tech guy that disappeared? I heard his girlfriend died. Guilt kill him. That's why he vanish. They didn't know the half of it. He rarely spoke in public anymore. The few times he did, it was during quiet visits to the orphanage that now bore Angela's name. He donated anonymously. No media. No cameras. Just grief and guilt, packaged in brown envelopes. At night, he would still return to that same cemetery. The grass had grown longer. The headstone was now worn. Angela Okafor, 1993 to 2024. I believed in love, even when it failed me. Sometimes, he'd bring a chair and just sit.